Hello and welcome to today's episode of Mitten Backstage. Thanks so much for joining us. I hope you're having a great week. Today I'm chatting with Elijah Russ. He is a wonderful musician, human, living in West Michigan. You can see him playing guitar as a solo artist with his band, the Elijah Russ Collective, or as a sit-in with bands like Gunnar and the Grizzly Boys and Melophobix. You can subscribe at different tier levels to get access to podcast episodes early in audio and video formats, exclusive merch, a monthly mailed newsletter, and more. You can also head over to DutcherSnedeker.com to see everything else that I'm currently up to around the internet. Also, whatever platform you happen to be listening or watching this on, feel free to follow, subscribe, whatever the platform says to do. Go ahead and do it. Like the video, leave a comment, tell me what you liked about it. Every little bit shows your support. All right, let's get right into today's conversation with Elijah Russ. Just kind of chat and hang out.
Let's do it.
Yeah. How was, you've been traveling a lot. How was all that? It looked sweet.
It was cool, man. The trip started out a little bit rough and, with anything, resilience is key. So, we turn poo-poo into gold, And,
Exactly.
It was amazing. The first day I was in the park, there's a main road that goes through there that I guess you have to have reservations for now. And it takes about an hour and a half, but you can get in there without a reservation before 6 a.m. or like after 5 p.m. So I was doing the before 6 a.m., getting up at 4:30 in the morning, driving to the road and getting on there. I think the first day I spent like 14 hours just popping along there and finding different stuff. Yeah, the sun doesn't set till like 10:30 out there. So it was like just nice, long, full days, of indescribable beauty. I mean, I took as many pictures as I possibly could, and it's unreal out there, and then there's that whole trail magic thing too, the people that you meet along the way and things that happen that are just, seem to only happen out on the road. And yep, I ended up getting caught in this town, Whitefish, Montana, which is like 45 minutes west of the park. Yeah, if you ever get a chance to go or like play in Whitefish, it's really cool. I'd never heard of this place before, and somebody along the trail was just telling me that there was live music there, so I went and checked it out, and there was this local funk band called 20 Grand that was playing Friday and Saturday night, and this girl Emily Clark was playing that Thursday night. I didn't get a chance to see her, but I saw 20 Grand both nights and, hung out, did some sit-ins, not with them, but with some other people in town. I met Van Morrison's guitar player, who happens to live in that area. Of course, he lives in northern Montana. It's beautiful there. And he was just like busking on the street, doing old man stuff, like schmoozing people and whatever. And I came up, he asked if I played. He let me play his like super nice Strat, and he had like this crazy custom one, and then let me sit in for the next day or whatever. Sat in with him all night, and then went and checked out the other bands, and then met some other people while I was doing that. They were playing an art festival, 4th of July, and sat in with them. They were a family band. Company Flight was their name, and they were so sweet to me. Like, I was on no sleep, and they still let me sit in, and it was great, man. It was just great. Checked out the park for another week and a half. My friend Jacob Wenzel happened to be working out there. He saw one of my Instagram posts and he's like, dude, I'm working at a hotel out here. He's like, come through and we'll take care of you, So for the second half of being out there, I had, bed and shower and endless food and company, and it was great.
Wow.
Yeah. And then I did like a 13-mile hike last Friday. I'm not a conditioned hiker by any means,
Right.
so 6.5 miles in with like 4,000 feet of elevation gain, and my legs were donezo. And pretty much anything else I wanted to do there, you know what I mean, would required a hike. I did all the kind of drivable stuff. So it's like, well, I'm probably just going to be sitting looking at the same views for a while. Or I had a few people hit me up and they're like, hey, if you're in Colorado by chance or whatever, come through. So I ended up boosting down to Colorado, did 14.5 hour drive from northern Montana to Denver in one day, and it was crazy. It was awesome. It was just good. Mhm.
Yeah, it sounds like the perfect, like, you know, because I've been thinking of taking a trip in November. I keep the more I keep telling people, I'm like, I have to just do it because I keep saying it. I want to see, Lewis Cole play with the Metropole Orkest in the Netherlands, and the week before, Earth Radio's kind of got off because people are on different trips. So I'm like,
Yeah.
oh, I could go like bounce around. Like I could see my friends in Berlin and Toulouse and London. Like I could just, catch up with people that I haven't seen in,
Yeah.
7, 8 years.
Oh
And-
yeah, dude. I've been getting to see the Metropole Orkest with Lewis Cole. Are you kidding me? That's
and
crazy.
well, and my friend Cody, who, moved to the Netherlands, he studied at the conservatory at The Hague, and that, I guess just being in that area for enough time and, being a great classical contemporary bass player, he'll sometimes sub for the Metropole Orkest, and he's like, I was like, oh, what gigs you do? And he's like, I wish I could do all the fun like he joked, because it's like, it's like, oh, Metropole with Snarky Puppy, and then he's not on that gig. It's like, Metropole does, tribute to Vivaldi. Is like, okay, he's on that gig. Like a normal classical gig.
Sounds like a tough life.
Yeah, he's like, just let me in, because I have a percussionist friend who grew up in Michigan, Evan Sadler. He plays with the New Deco ensemble in Florida, and their programming is kind of the same as the Metropole, where they're like, like 2 nights with Corey Henry, and it's like, a bunch of cool arrangements of his music and covers, and then it's like, just seeing that, like, that's something I want to see more from Grand Rapids. It's tricky with, I guess, donors and stuff, but there's a lot of opportunity to, like, kind of bridge the gap between, like, they do some things like, like the symphony, like the video game stuff where they like broadcast, Pokemon or Final Fantasy, and then, there's that
Yeah.
kind of audience, and then they do the Symphony of Soul, I think, at least once a year, and that's a big event. But it'd be cool to have, like, I don't know, more guest artists that are incorporated with an orchestra than just like, a guy who's super proficient at piano doing a concerto, or like a featured, violinist or singer. Like, all those are sweet, but there's also, like, a body that large should have, like, the opportunity to do more modern arrangements and, like, work with more contemporary artists than just being like, hey, remember Bach? Remember him?
100%. Yeah, right. God, I know. That's why I quit music school. Yeah, you're onto something too. And I've, that thought has crossed my mind a couple of times. And that kind of is what I want to do for my album release show, just on a really reduced level, just having a small string section, a small horn section, a small choir, but to be able to utilize like the Grand Rapids Symphony, and do like local showcases, like hearing orchestral arrangements of Earth Radio songs, for instance,
Mhm.
would be sweet, or doing like a night, like you do like a normal bill, and do like, 5 songs or whatever per artist, but with the symphony, backing,
Yeah,
that's sounds like you got more work to do, Dutcher.
I know. And we've even talked about that as like one of our like, because thinking of the arc of the band, it's like, okay, we have the opportunity to like, you know, not just collaborate on recordings, but like try and create these moments, with other people, and especially, in thinking of like when you're thinking about booking, since we're kind of just thrown back into like, all right, go do that music thing you guys keep talking about.
Yeah.
It's like, we need a lot of stuff. It's like, no, you're fine, just go do it. You're like,
Yeah,
no,
right.
okay.
Overload. Feels like overload.
Yeah, and well, and yeah, it's like we want to do more of those types of things to make, if we're gonna do a handful of shows like Grand Rapids, Muskegon, like our like home bases, we want to make sure it's not just like we like rake beer, oh, intimate vibe, small cap. If you like sours, rake beer makes good sours. Okay, Berlin Sprig Fest, other bands are there, it's like a beach vibe, outdoors, professional sound. And then like Tuesday is like, oh, it's at the Montague band shell. Like it was 3 shows, I think of this past week is like 3 shows that were all on US 31 territory, but all
Uh-huh.
different, like different built-in crowds, different like environments, different, you know like, oh, the band shell, more of a sit down crowds with like some kids running around, and then like Berlin Sprague, like a bunch of 20 and 30 somethings dancing and having drinks because there's a social zone. And then rake beer is like, you know half the people who stayed from yoga plus the people who came for the show, and it's this mix of people kind of all hanging out and meeting each other, and
Yeah.
more intimate. And yeah, so thinking of like, oh, if we could do something with strings, or a full orchestra, like just making a big project. I know definitely MLMB is probably the easiest one to translate, in my opinion, to the symphony, because it's just got this big, it's got a very clear direction. It's got a lot of time to build and grow. So I think that
Hmm.
one is one that I'm like, we should start there, maybe evolve, like, just something that kind of has a bigger scope. Um,
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Oh, that'd be a good one.
yeah.
Yeah. Get all the kids, get the children's choir down for that.
Right. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
Tons of room for stuff.
that for sure. Yeah, keep thinking about that. And I will too. It would be just really cool to have an experience like that. And it seems a little bit more like all inclusive. I
Mhm.
love having these different crowds that you were just describing. Like even playing for Q-tips every now and again is fun. When I say Q-tips, it's like the old blues crowds, little white
Yeah.
hairs everywhere.
Right. Yeah.
And but to have something where everybody can come to and plan on, and all that would be really cool. Be really cool.
Yeah.
And that's kind of, yeah, that's what I'm trying to do for my album release show. It's been tough trying to find the right place to do it. I think I decided on the Wealthy Theater,
Oh, nice.
capacity wise, and the stage is big enough to fit like 15, 16 people on it. So my
Right.
original intent was to do the listening room because I just love the room and I love Quinn and all that, but I'd have to have people on the floor, which I guess wouldn't be too weird, but you know what I mean? It would be nice to get them all on the stage.
Right. I'd be curious too, because last February I missed, that there was a show that was this chamber ensemble that I helped start with some friends from Grand Valley. We were all in the new music ensemble together. We made the West Michigan New Music Collective, and we had done, like a couple, like a, church concert, easy access, easy venue to use, and then like another concert. And I couldn't go to our show at the listening room. The ensemble opened for
the vintage parlor orchestra. So I'm like, how did they fit on that? Were they spilling
Yeah.
off to the sides, or like?
Yeah, I have to go back and look at that. That's Emily's thing, right?
I think
Emily
so.
Smith's thing, vintage part. That
Yeah.
sounds right. Yeah, I think they might have had to have some people on the floor, which I think would still be cool. I'd still enjoy that, you know. But wealthy theaters just seems like, and I've actually, believe it or not, have never been inside the wealthy
Oh,
theater. Never been to a show there, just never even checked. I don't know why. I just one that I missed, you know. So kind
right.
of cool. Yeah. No.
Yeah, it's definitely one of those places I've been thinking about since things are opening back up. Because I did a couple of those like WICE stream things in the space last year, and I thought about like, okay, when was the last thing I did before that? And it was like, it must have been like 2014 or 15. I saw Cheryl Warden's band, but or was her band My Brightest Diamond, and it's like,
Okay.
it's kind of like, like very, because she's like 1 foot in the contemporary classical space, and like, was gotten accolades for like really cool performances of work as a singer. And then she's kind of a, art rock, like, mixing some of the Bjork, mixing some of the, um, what is her name? St. Vincent, like, mixing some of
Okay.
those different kinds of artistic rock,
Yeah.
multifaceted things into
Art
a
rock.
fun
I
show.
like that. Art rock. That's a cool term.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right on.
But yeah, you've been working on the album just in general, or did it kind of start with all the free time last year?
We started recording it back in March or April. We did all the
Oh, okay.
chord tracking for it. And I've just been kind of like, it's been on the back burner, honestly. When wedding season started and all that, I got a little overwhelmed. And then I had the trip coming up and was kind of just only thinking about that. And now I'm home and I got to get the string parts recorded and a couple more horn parts done. Um, and I think that's about it, you know. And then obviously getting it mixed and however I'm going to release it, yeah, it's an expensive bit when you're doing it like by yourself and funding it by yourself. It takes a bit longer than a band situation, which I envy. Sometimes being able to have five people pulling in on ideas and pulling in on cash, and whatever. But it's just, there's no real timeline to it. It's only the one that we put ourselves on, and that's one thing I learned from the pandemic is just like, I don't need to feel rushed to do things, or
Right.
like it's nice to know that I can hustle when it needs to be done, but it's also really nice to not feel a need to hustle, you know.
Right.
So I've been kind of just reveling in that and taking my time and like stopping and talking to people on the street, just kind of losing the one track mind for a bit, and whether, I find some balance in there or it kind of stays this way, either way, I'm kind of cool with it,
Right.
I'm trying to get a date set by the end of this week for the album release show. I'm thinking towards the end of November before it snows, but things are still slow enough, that nice in between fall kind of period.
Right.
Yeah. So I'll get people to plan on it. I would love, people to put it on their calendar and go out to dinner beforehand at one of our fine local establishments.
Yeah.
Trying to get it set up so a few of the, like Hancock is over there, and the soup shops over there and stuff. So trying to work with them and see if they'll maybe give like a discount to people that are going to the show and just kind of integrate it a little bit more,
Yeah.
but Yeah, but that album release show is for my album Sandcastles is going to be it, and that's like the collective project. That's like the heart and soul music. But I'm also releasing a short lo-fi hip hop kind of thing too. You know, it's trending and it's actually really fun to sit down and make. I don't know if you mess around with any of that stuff every now and again, you know. But it's fun. It's like it's a cool place to dump the ideas that usually go to die, you know. It's just sit in my
Right.
voice forever, you know. And yeah, so trying to do both of those at the same time, and then I have written a book. Now it's just getting it published or whatever, just kind of chronicling the time period that all these songs were written in, taking it, you know, each song is like a chapter. I'm working with some local artists, like visual artists, to kind of, I'm giving each of them like 3 songs to pick from, and they can just pick one and make a piece of art to it that I'll feature in the book, you know, and have that be kind of like the illustration and reel in some of that community too. You know, I love, you know, visual artists and painters and, you know, people who sketch and all of that. And so finding ways to kind of create a platform for them as well and just be like, here, you know, there's this thing that we can do together. Here's an opportunity for us to work together, you know. So that's
Right.
been a whole thing. And but you know, getting a book self-published and getting an album mixed and mastered and finished recording and, you know, merchandise and all,
Yeah.
all that other shit is you know, it's wild, but it's moving along. It's just I set a deadline when I was working on this stuff over the winter, you know, for like June 1st. You know, it was like
Right.
as time goes on, it's like no way. So I kind of lost that idea of like, you know, let's just kind of work on this as we can, put in the work every day, you know, and but like enjoy things too. And like I'm not gonna get stressed. I refuse to get stressed out about things that I actually have control over in my life.
Yeah.
Which is like one of the biggest reasons I like decided to become a full-time musician too, was to take dominance over my schedule, you know. So yeah, it's just been a whole like learning curve, transitioning from bar musician to, you know, ticketed venue musician and all of the things that go along with that, the mental reconstruction, the business reconstruction, you know. It's a trip.
Definitely.
Yeah, but I think what I decided on, you know, is like I'd be playing in bars and, you know, doing all this stuff and like would even have the collective, you know, we did a couple residencies and whatever, and you know, it was more like people stopping by if they heard about it and had time or whatever. And I really decided like, you know, and maybe this sounds facetious or whatever, but I want to be a priority to somebody. I want to be a date on somebody's calendar, you know,
Right.
and like, and be planned on to come see, you know. So I just pulled back from doing shows this year with my band.
Yep.
We're maybe doing like one summer concert series, and then I'm maybe doing like 1 or 2 bar gigs that I booked last year, you know. But beyond that, it's like I don't want to be playing 3, 4, 5 nights a week around town. And then when I want to do an actual show, you know, and sell tickets for like 25, you know, 20, 25, $30 or whatever, because I'm going to have a 15-piece band, you know, that's going to be sick. I'm looking forward to it, you know. I want people to come and out. And maybe it's just like me personally thinking if I do something like that, you know, people aren't going to come if I'm gigging around town. But that's just kind of what I feel like I need to do, you know, is just kind of make it a little bit more exclusive for myself, you know.
Yeah, that's kind of what we've been, you know, with Earth Radio schedule this year, you know, yes, we did hit, you know, kind of the same area in 3, you know, or in the same week, but there were a couple people, you know, who came to like 2 events. Some people came to all 3. Like, you know, it wasn't so much of a like, it's like the people who wanted to hear the music, they're like, sweet, I can see them 3 times. It's not that far from my house. But there were also, each audience was kind of separate and like a little bit different. And, like I mentioned, all the different, like, oh, one's kind of a festival vibe, one's a concert series with a built-in audience, one's a series we've been doing that we started last year. And but the rest of the summer is kind of the same idea, where we're only going to hit certain spots, and then in the winter and fall we're planning like to not, we might, like, we're talking to some folks in Chicago. We reconnected with some bands we played with in Ohio, and we're seeing what's open to possibly like do a dip in and out of like Chicago, or a dip in and out of Ohio, just to kind of touch base with that area. But yeah, the local shows, it's like, we're like going to be very intentional, like we're playing this venue, this date, like, especially we were thinking about December, how like Billy Strings is going to take over the world, and for New Year's like he's coming for the 3 nights at the intersection. So I'm like, don't book any. Yeah, I'm like, don't book anything, any of those 3 nights in GR. Like, all of our friends are going to be at that concert. Yeah, it's like, just let's go. It's like, it'd be more beneficial to like go 1 or 2 nights and just like hang and catch up with folks, because there'll be a ton of people from the scene.
For sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's gonna be like a show that like all of us musicians are gonna get to attend with each other, and like actually just see each other at a concert instead of seeing each other at each other's shows,
Yeah, that felt like what it was, a lot of that for I couldn't go to any of them this weekend, but all those 3 nights with Green Sky Bluegrass, tons of people were like, oh, I could just spend 3 nights camping and seeing some Green Sky and then some other cool bands along the way. Like,
yep, I completely missed that show until it was happening. I looked at Facebook Friday night. I was like, Sierra Hull is playing 30 minutes from my house right now. How am I missing this? Something about my algorithm's been messed up though. I haven't been seeing shows like pop up on my feed, I don't know what's up with that. I always hit interested when I do see them. But yeah, that'll be cool. Yeah, I'm looking forward to those New Year's shows, and I got a couple offers for some decent money for BWK to do New Year's, and like, nope, Billy's in town.
Yeah. Well, and Earth Radio, we just confirmed a New Year's Eve gig that we're kind of piecing together some of the details, but it'll be at Ethnology up in Elk Rapids, and which in my head I'm like, okay, are we inside, like outside, like, because I know they do music in and outside. It'd be cool if like we could get kind of a mix, like where they have a big garage door that's opens up to the patio. It'd be cool to set up the band there and kind of have an indoor outdoor blend. But I had a oh yeah, I had a BWK booked probably from last year, and I was just like, nope, can't do it.
Yep.
I got this more fun New Year's gig.
That's right. That's been a kind of a weird situation to be in too, because like they start booking us for these things for BWK a year in advance, so it's like I put for this trip, I put the time in on my calendar last September. Had I not done that, I'd be doing that every weekend, but then it's like when creative projects come up, like sometimes I'll sit in for Melophobix or sit in for Gunnar and the Grizzly Boys or whoever, and now I'm like, well, I have this wedding book, can you guys pay me $600 or what? Yeah, and it kind of sucks, but it's like, it's obviously it's great to have something like that in place that we can all just pool from, and that can be our bread and butter instead of having to gig bars 4 or 5 nights a week. But
Yep.
yeah, it's cutting into the creative stuff a little bit. I'm trying to find a balance in there, but maybe it's just stepping the game up too, and being like, okay, now these personal shows, that's kind of a huge thing for my album release show, is like, all right, well, I want to pay everybody more than they would be paid from a wedding,
Right.
just because, number one, for availability's sake, so I can make sure it stays on their calendar when I book them,
Right.
but to be able to add weight, and I hate this angle, but to add financial weight to our
Hmm.
creative projects, and be like, this is worth paying for, the same as it'd be worth paying to go see a tribute band or whatever,
No, you're fine.
Okay.
um, well, yeah, and it's also it's it's that thing of like you're building this this version of what you put your name on something. It's like, okay, there's the solo artist, there's the the corporate wedding band leader dude, there's the guy who'll sit in and play with West Michigan bands, and then to have the 15 piece, it's like that takes a lot of time and planning. But then you're also I think of when we did that was it Mind Your Business, that song,
Yeah.
when we did that, and it was like a well produced video, like all of that is just adding to the thing of attracting more offers for that type of ensemble. So it's like you're building a thing that's going to have a platform, and maybe it's only like 4 shows in the summer, but those 4 shows are going to be like big spectacle events. They're going to feed into the rest of everything you're doing, because they're
Mm-hmm.
these larger, because it's interesting, like as things get back into live music settings. I was talking with Quinn about this. He's trying to navigate the space of like, I'm booking entertainment again, but people have also spent a year literally getting instant gratification for most things. Like a lot of
Yeah.
people started doing more takeout, a lot of people started streaming more Netflix, a lot of people started like streaming stuff on Spotify, and or like tuning into their favorite streamers. And it's like, okay, now the competition is sort of like, okay, are you willing to leave your house? Are you willing to put on normal clothes and not be in the comfiest clothes, or comfy clothes you wear out, but like, are you willing to leave the comforts of your home to you're gonna spend money on food, drink, parking, tickets, you're gonna be there a couple hours unless you leave early, like, and to see there's a lot of people who are like, yes, I will do that, I'll pay the money to go hang out and go see stuff. And then I think there's still a lot of people who they're figuring out like what live music looks like again for them, because they I even as a performer, like I was thinking of just the weird moments where you kind of you're off the stage and you're kind of looking around, like there are a lot of people, there's more people here than I saw all
Yeah.
last year. And we're dead, and it's just like an interesting thing to like readjust to. And but yeah, it's still like, I like it, it's a good trend in the right direction, but also it comes with the weird, I don't know, it's like another layer of like uh trying to advertise everything. Like, I don't know how else to convince you other than like, do you like music? Do you like maybe me as a person? Do you like my
Right.
band? Do you like,
Yep.
you know, like,
All of those things
oh,
are, yeah,
yeah.
all of those things are factors, and we have I think we are blessed with a great community of listeners as much as we are
Hmm.
musicians here, that,
Yeah.
my idea with this thing is like, I want to do something different than I've done before, and something that my audience, I play all kinds of different music, so my audience is generally just the general music lover, not the country lover, the rock lover, the hip hop, whatever, some kind of mix of all of that. So giving them something that's different, that is it's more involved, more organized, but a chance to support, you know. I haven't, like, if I'm not doing anything all year, here's your shot to come and see the band, and that's it, you know. But then, you know, using it as like a social experiment too, with exactly the things you're talking about, being like, all right, who's still down for this, you know, to do it like this, you know. So time will tell, you know.
Yeah, and well,
But I
and
think,
also like, yeah, I think of, you know, also the venues opening back up, some getting relief, you know, restarting the cultures they've built. And you know, I'm way more, I'm kind of in the mindset of like, it's a, you know, quote unquote post pandemic, like we're still in it, but it's like things are opening up again. I want to do a better job of thriving, and that, you know, that's a little, you know, a little bit more financial, a little bit, you know, health and wellness wise, a little bit like who I'm surrounding myself with creatively, who I'm, you know, having to be in the trenches with, because taking a year off, you know, it was good to like still have Earth Radio to connect with and like process that time together as a group. But then getting back out into it, now we're all we're all much more cognizant of like, oh, this is what we want out of, you know, our touring, out of our playing, out of our recording. Like it seemed like, you know, we spent a year you know, just stewing in these ideas and thinking about, you know, our goals and our things that we want to achieve. And now it feels like it sharpened our drive to like a better organized point than just being like, you know, kind of riding this wave of like, oh, it's like, it's fun to make this music, and it, you know, we're having fun doing shows, and now it's like, okay, we're starting to, like, we're going to work with a new producer, we're going to have, you know, this still at Third Coast, but we're going to have, you know, this guy come in who's worked with like all sorts of, like Jill Scott, Alicia Keys, Badu,
what
Drake, like he just lives in Niles.
word?
and like just happened to like find out about us through the grapevine. Like, I don't know who lives in Niles, who shared the album with him, but thanks for that.
Yeah,
And
dude, I know Jake
yeah.
Siniger from Humphreys lives in Niles too. Sounds like Niles is happening.
Oh yeah, Niles just got a small little, that's that's the funny part about Michigan, is like you just discover like, you know, like who lives in TC that I think it was like Bob James or something, like the keyboard producer dude, or yeah, just you know, random like people who, it's not just like, oh, you know, like Mario Batali has a house because Traverse City has vineyards, and then, and you know,
Right,
he has a house there for the summer. It's like, oh, like when you found Van Morrison's guitar player in a random town in Montana,
right.
like that's he chose his own adventure, and he's comfortable enough being like, I've done all these cool things, like I don't care if I have, you know, like I'm not going to keep, you know, living in Los Angeles, or, you know, wherever he was living and doing the grind. It's like, I've
Right.
afforded, you know, I could chill in a small town and let my work speak for itself and do whatever I want.
That says a lot. It says a lot about these small towns, and just, you know, I mean, in Michigan too, we have so many of these beautiful little towns that would be, if you're at a point in your life, would be so easy to just settle down in, you know. In fact, it's
Yeah.
preferable, you know. I mean, it really is. It's sick here. You know, and the rent's still cheap, which is sweet. You
Yeah.
know. You know, I mean, I can afford to take 3-week vacations on a musician's salary, like just living in Michigan where all my family and friends are at. Like, why would I move anywhere else, you
Yeah.
know? Until it's like really opportunistic, you know, I guess. But, you know, it's like, that's a whole nother thing too, you know, thinking through this pandemic stuff, is just really being grateful for our dealt hands, you know.
Yep.
There's a lot of good stuff going on right where we're at, and how do we cultivate it and utilize each other, you know. So, and I think that's happening. I think it's happening in different ways. I think everybody's trying to do their part, to
Yep.
integrate more community. And, I was talking to, I don't know if you know Sam Granger. He's a
Oh
gypsy
yeah.
player. I don't know if I'm supposed to talk about this, but I'm gonna. Sorry, Sam. He wants to start. He's trying to start Grand Rapids Guitar Festival, right?
Oh, nice.
Which blows my mind that I was like, wow, I can't believe no one's ever hasn't thought of that yet. Great idea.
Yeah.
And he wants to get like Julian Lodge to come out and do a seminar and stuff like that.
Oh
And
yeah.
have workshops and with local teachers, so it'd be like me and him and Adam Marth and Kevin Kozel coming out and talking about guitar stuff or whatever, having Pace come in, talk about his angle on bass,
Andrew Bergeron, like that dude should
yeah,
definitely he should definitely do that too.
yeah, Andrew Bergeron, and maybe even get John Marshall down in there too, and have some of the classical guys come and hang out, like for sure.
Yeah.
That's a great idea. Thanks, Dutcher. I'm gonna add that to the list.
Yeah, well, and he also runs I think it's at CC, he runs the guitar ensemble, so it's like a bunch of classical guitarists all playing larger arranged music, but then within that it's like you have people like Jeremy Verweiss, I think he's part of it, or like Ian Thompson's brother Kyle Thompson, he's a classical guitar player.
Yep. And when I was at CC, I did that ensemble. Brian Morris was leading it at the time, but they may have switched since then,
Okay, and maybe
great.
he was just involved, but I don't know.
Yeah, they would all come in, and like each of us had different instructors. I knew that they would give private lessons to some of the students, Kyle and Andrew both. But then if Brian ever needed a sub, John or Andrew would come in and do that too. Great dudes, though. Such great folks, They're awesome.
Yeah.
Andrew does Folius duo, right? With Carmen.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. They've been doing, I think, at least once or twice a month, maybe even every Sunday, they've been doing these, concerts on stream. And, they're also, I feel like, equal parts known for like the classical tango music, and then it's like every week they just cook the most amazing food from like locally sourced places, and it's like, what can I just come over and
yeah,
like, have
I'm
dinner
sure
and listen to you guys play music?
Yeah, they'd have you over anytime. They're so sweet, I keep up with them because they like to travel and go out and do the music thing and travel too, and just go to the national parks and whatever. So we keep up about that stuff every now and again, and it's cool to see other people doing that. And they're so seasoned, they're so good. There's just so many people like that around here that just crush it at their instrument, and the music they make is beautiful, so very fortunate to be in a place like this.
Yeah, and I'm assuming Sam, if he's looking for, I'm not like helping plan this event, I guess, but I'm just thinking more people like in Michigan that come to mind is like, I don't know, like like Sasha Kashperko from Detroit. He's
yes,
record
dude, yes.
Or like Matt Landon down at Western, or there's just all the, or Travis Swanson or his teacher Miles Okazaki. Like Miles is he's in that modern jazz lexicon, and he's got his crazy theory book, so it's like, why not have him do some nerdy geometric shape pointillism thing, like, oh, every harmony connects to each other and it forms geometric shapes, and you can express, like, that's kind of a reductive version of his theory, but it's sweet seeing like all the connecting things he does.
What? That sounds cool. I've never heard of this guy. That's sweet. It's Travis's teacher. Okay, cool. Yeah, that's all right.
Yeah, Travis studied with him at University of Michigan.
Okay.
Because Miles, he kind of has one foot in New York and then the teaching job in Michigan. But he also is in SF Jazz Collective with Etienne Charles, who plays trumpet and teaches at MSU.
Okay.
But yeah, he's like, he's just teaching at U of M. This dude who's like, he's also one of the only, I think he might be the only person, actually, the only person to record all of Thelonious Monk's music on a solo instrument. So he did a whole like 60 tracks, 6 volumes of solo guitar.
Whoa.
So much music.
That is so cool. Wow. It's amazing. That just blows my mind. It's amazing the things that people do and that they're doing around here, and they're just here. That's wow. That's so cool.
Yeah, it reminds you too, like there's always or rather, you don't know who you're meeting when you meet someone, like, so why vibe anyone when you could potentially have a cool person to learn from or work with, or play a show with, or like, why not just take a second and not just immediately like be like, oh, it's just, I've seen every guitar player. It's like, nope, just listen a little bit longer. Might be someone cool.
You're absolutely right too. That's another thing I've been slowing down, being patient, taking in the surroundings, just listening more, in every aspect, listening more, so
yeah. I definitely got that. I don't know if you watched Bo Burnham's recent special.
No, I've been out and I keep hearing about
Right.
it. I need to check it out, yeah, I hear it's amazing.
Yeah, it's definitely like the mood is, it's this weird like experiment, and like he's like isolated and he's working on this thing that he thinks, it's basically, he's trying to taper it to the timeline of what experts early on in the pandemic were saying, like, oh, it'll be good by the summer, and then cut to a year later, and different regions still have problems, new strains, vaccine rollouts are depending on your state, it's all over the place. And so there's just like moments where he's like, checks back in, he's like, still doing this project. Me in my room. I thought I'd be done in 2 months, and it's been a year.
Yeah, I'll watch that today. I got the day off, so yeah, I'm gonna do that for sure.
Yeah, it's funny and insightful, little moments of like kind of raw, like unedited, like him getting just frustrated and like depressed, and you're just like, yeah, man, this is the range of it's like if quarantine was just captured in one thing artistically, is like that thing.
That's awesome. Yeah, good stuff. Okay, cool. Yep. So how have you been doing? I mean, I know you've never stopped being busy, so, but how are you faring coming back into the world of normality, I guess, or somewhat normality?
Yeah, it's definitely interesting. I'm kind of doing some of the things you were mentioning, like just listening more, taking time, taking space, not not all, like trying to have a busy schedule but not have the grind mentality I've had since I did my undergrad. Like have some version of it where it's like I'm consistent and I know work's getting done and I know things are happening, but also remembering like, hey, you know what else is productive? Going on a walk, or making your own food, or
listen to the birds, man.
Yeah, like, well, and yesterday me and Hannah and Kevin all went on Kevin's boat, and all 3 of us are just like, like, oh, we've just been like, Hannah teaches a lot, and then she has all of her weekends either booked with us or with her solo project or with Blue Water Kings. And then Kevin's been doing like 70 to 90 hours like just like all of the work all of the time, and just putting in the hours. And then like my trickiest thing has been like seeing, I'm getting more into a schedule and a routine, but I'm chunking the day in different ways of like, okay, before 10, that's when I could, like get up, go for a morning walk, have a gradual ease until, I'm not immediately getting up and getting in my car. I'm taking a second to like adjust to the day. And then, all right, I have 11 to 6 or 7 is like this productive window where I'm not leaving and it's in total darkness. But work is still getting done and things are still being accomplished. And then late night is like, okay, if I do need to stay up late, it's got to be something like, all right, I have to wait for this video to render, and maybe I fall asleep and I wake up at 3 a.m. and like, oh, I gotta use the bathroom, and then like, oh yeah, that video's done, and then I quick just get it all scheduled and then fall back asleep. But yeah, I've been trying to figure out the new, like, I don't know, the new routines with the podcasting and trying to grow more stuff around what I'm up to, and kind of bridging like all the disparate parts of things that I do into one, like, I don't know, maybe it's just a logo of my face. That's the thing that brings it together. But it's trying to have everything like interact with each other and like, think critically about like how I want things to grow. And part of it came from the pandemic, and part of it also came from like, not seeing, like, I'm turning 29 this year, so next year I'll be 30, and it's like, not to say like, oh, I have to have it all figured out by 30. It's more like I want to get certain habits and things formed that will help, continue to be flexible, healthier, better equipped to do the hard work that, is going to come with continuing to build things while everyone around, not everyone, but a lot of people are skeptical of, or they don't, it's like, I tried podcasting, it doesn't work. I'm like, well, you shared it to SoundCloud and then didn't share your SoundCloud. Like, that's why it didn't work. You didn't tell anyone about your podcast, or like,
right.
Yeah, it's like, everyone sees like, the big thing. And I think what more people that I've been talking with have really come to terms with, that has made it a lot easier to, gauge growth and, hit certain markers and feel like you're progressing, is, like, yes, you might want to be that person, like, I want to play stadiums and do all this crazy, but what's to, like, there's value in having like 200 fans in the area you're in, being able to like, pay for merch, come to your shows. And obviously that number can always grow. Because even,
model.
yeah, and like,
yeah.
and just thinking too of like, there, someone might have 5 million followers on YouTube, but engagement might only be 100,000 views, 200,000 views. Like, the metric of like how many people are subscribed versus like how many people follow, it's kind of that marker of like, okay, 500 people came to this event you did, but only 20 people bought merch. So those 20 people are now part of the 400 people you've built over the last year, who you've kept tabs on, like, oh, I went to this show, 10 people bought CDs, went to this show, sold 6 shirts, went to this, and you start to see like, it's not just like, oh, only 2 people liked the music. It's like, oh wait, I like, 800 people this summer like bought merch or interacted with me in some way. And it's looking at the like, more things in your control and your sphere of like being more personable, instead of just looking at aggregate data and being like, what's my favorite way to trend on Twitter. It's like, I don't use Twitter, so that's not a goal of mine.
Well, and having your fans being the people who you go and eat at their restaurants, or they fix your car, or like whatever.
Yep.
Really making it feel like more of a family aspect.
Yep.
And I know that can sound like extreme and like kind of almost like a hippie kind of thing for people, but it really is like these people want to hear your music. They want to buy anything that you're putting out, you know, they want to just support you and what you're doing as a human being. And those are the people that I'm trying to grow. And it's that super fan thing. I learned that at one of the B-side sessions, is the super
Oh
fan
yeah.
model, you know. And it's so true. Like if you can build that base, of course, and then anything else is just like outliers, and those are great numbers to depend on too. But I think at this point, like, you know, I heard somebody say this, like, you know, rule your block, you know, rule your borough, rule your town, rule your city, then stretch out, you know. And I think about that often. I'm like, if I can't do it to like a satisfactory level personally in the area that I'm at, then I need to work on that until it's satisfactory and then spread out, you know. And I love traveling and making these connections in other places. And there are people in other places that would come and see the band or whatever if we came, but I still want to make big waves at home first, you know, and
Right.
cater to the people who, you know, when I even now when I'm writing songs or whatever, like I'll think about specific people in our community, you know, and that's like, how do I relay this moral or this story to them, you know,
Yes.
and still have it be personally satisfactory. I keep going back to that word, you know.
Yeah.
But I think that's it. I think that's like, you know, if we can get to that point, those numbers will grow, because then it's just
Yeah.
like, then you have all these people who are in this loving situation gathered together, and any human being takes note of that when they're walking by or when they're scrolling online and they see that there's engagement happening. You know, they're like, oh, I want to, you know, I want to be a part of this too. It sounds like such and such has good shit going on, you know. So I think, and that's like the most organic and for me best way to build it. You know, it's like you could spend a bunch of money on ads, Instagram ads, and, you know, pushing it and road dogging it, and, you know, sleeping 5 dudes in a van and, you know, going out and doing it that way, you know. But I did that for a little bit, you know. And
Yeah.
even when I first started touring, we had hotels and stuff, and I'm like, I don't want to sleep in a van, you know. And like, I feel like just trying to get out there before you're ready requires those things. Like members in my band have kids and shit now, you know what I mean? So now I'm thinking about that. Like, you know, these gigs have to pay enough for it to be worth it for them to come and do. I want it
Yep.
to be a family environment so that everybody can come, you know. And it's like, it's this weird kind of place to be in, but it's all inclusive, and I love that, you know. So I
Right.
used to be, oh, kids, whatever, blah, blah, but it's actually been one of the greater things to kind of happen personally, is just having children to kind of keep, you know, accountable for, you know.
Yeah.
Keep account of, I should say.
Right. Yeah. Well, yeah, it's like I think that's just, you know, it's part of the evolution of, like, I don't know, the people you surround yourself with. It's like the same intent is there. It's just like a different execution. Like, oh, I've always cared about, you know, making sure everyone gets what they need to get paid. It's just gone up because, you know, you're investing more, like making that much more effort to invest in an, you know, an increased price because of, you know, like kids or, you know, whatever circumstance. That just strengthens that, you know, that friendship, that working relationship, because it's, yeah, it just, you know, it shows that you're attentive to needs and not just like, hey, can you give me a ton of time for not a lot of money?
Right. And there's this, I firmly believe that there are ways to do this music thing, even if it takes a while to get to the right spot. There are ways to do it and keep everybody fed and keep everybody treated well and happy, you know. And if we're traveling, put them up in a decent hotel and not, you know, some, you know, whatever motel with dirt coffee and cereal breakfast, you know.
I've been learning a lot from randomly I got recommended like a clip from T-Pain's streams. Like he just streams on Twitch, you know, him working on stuff and listening. He'll listen to stuff live and like, you know, give it a critique. And you know, he'll just talk about like he talked about you know, taking the short game versus playing the long game. And he had an example where like a company offered him like, you know, $900,000 to buy one song that they would own everything for this song, and he would get $900,000. And then he got another offer from Akon, and Akon was like, I'll give you 20 grand, but I don't want to own your song. I want to help you, you know, grow your base and your I want to, you know, make sure this song has legs beyond the investment. And then T-Pain I think he said he took 17 of that and like, you know, helped his dad, like he had like medical costs or something. And then, you know, the production work, he just ate that cost because he's, you know, basically producing it himself, and then used the $3 grand towards the promo and stuff. And since that song, I got to look the video to remember what song, but since that song dropped, he's made, you know, 10 times that $900,000 offer because he let it grow and get placed in movies and, you know, shows and commercials. And I'm like, yeah, that's like way, like I would, if, you know, at some point a label were to approach Earth Radio, I would definitely want the short game. I would, you know, I'm not taking $1 million contract. I'm taking, you know, $1,500 towards an album. That's something we can pay back way sooner. We could pay that back in like 3 or 4 gigs. And then as we continue to grow, we can start asking for more money. Because yeah, it's like, you know, everyone wants that like the you know, top of the heap crazy, you know, lifestyle. And T-Pain even talked about a group he signed that ended up not working out, that he basically made their dreams come true. Like he, you know, they lived in this super nice house where they could, you know, have a bunch of space to do content and production. They, you know, nice cars, you know, definitely the, you know, hip hop music video lifestyle. And then the band imploded, and they kind of, you know, they tried to do that whole like, all right, well, it didn't work out. We'll see you next time. And he's like, no, you owe me $3 million. You're gonna pay that. And like it's gonna take, if it's in installments, like you are repaying me for the investment that I made. And so he like, you know, understands both ends of like he's invested a lot of his time and money and stuff, and then he's also given a lot of his time and money, and you know, seen the wrong type of management or the wrong type of promo. You know, people, he was like, if I had listened, you know, Snoop Dogg said auto-tune was a phase, and now everyone's using auto-tune. Like everyone got mad at me, and now it's part of the culture.
Like,
Did you watch
Did you watch that episode? Dude, isn't it good?
It's so
good. Yeah, and that's one thing to think about too with like the whole, you know, label thing. Not that I've been approached, but if I ever was, you know, it makes me nervous at this point in my career. Like I feel like I wouldn't know what to do with that. So, but my angle has been like right now, I used to do Walk the Beat, you know, and that was like all sponsorship based stuff. So I'm like, well, I mean, why can't I do sponsors for an album, you know, and do like have the first track on the album just be thanking all of my sponsors who gave me, you know, $1,000 here, $1,000 there, or whatever, you know, to make this whole thing happen, which is so, I think that's totally reasonable. I think that's a kind of a, you know, I think musically we're moving towards more private investors than we are record labels, you know. I don't know, I'm sure you've noticed that trend too. And you know, how do we take that and kind of, instead of finding one person, why not just use the community? Why not just use the community? That, you know, there's all these insurance companies and all that have advertisement money put aside. Why not use it for a musical project, you know, and do those things and fulfill those dreams, you know, in a realistic way, instead of waiting for $1 million deal or going out to LA and seeking one of those, or Nashville and you know, seeking a deal and grinding your ass off, you know, for that. I think there's just other ways to do it, you know.
Yeah, and
Rat
it's
thing, you know, that rat race shit is, you know, it's just, it doesn't sound fun. I want to have fun. I got into this to have fun, you know.
exactly. It's well, and especially after, you know, like 6 years of music school, I'm, you know, my brain is like, I've worked super hard to get to where I am right now. I don't have time for like, you know, and I've been thinking about it recently as like, you know, not saying like people who are, you know, still adjusting to coming back to gigs. It's more the people who, even prior to the pandemic, you know, there was always some weird quirk, or, you know, it starts as a quirk, like, oh, that's just how they are, and then you're like, actually no, I don't want to work with this person. Why am I still
Yeah.
here? Like, why am I doing, like, why am I saying yes to a thing that just for the payday, when it's like I could say yes to a payday that actually I enjoy, and not have to, you know, like, that's why so many people hate their jobs, their conventional jobs, a lot of the times, just because they don't really get to pick who they work with half the time, or, you know, what environments they're working in, or like, you know, they take a job because like they live in a spot that it's like, oh, you could work at, you know, this place that isn't hiring, or McDonald's, where, you know, every tourist passing through that city is going to stop by, and you're going to get slammed with 40 cars at the lunch rush, and you know, it'll suck, and you know, you just have those moments of like, oh, you know, as a musician, I have control of my schedule again. Even if it is getting busier, I have the power to, you know, plan things out 3 to 6 months ideally in advance. You know, 6 months always great, but yeah, being able, yeah, being able to just be like, you know, okay, I don't need to take these, I could take these 2 weeks off, and like that's me being my boss. Or like, oh, you know, every musician in every band, you know, you are also, you know, you are the payroll, you are HR, you are customer service, you are like, you know, responsible for a version of those roles. And, you know, helping the band dynamic, helping the audience band relationship, helping, you know, people feel comfortable and supported. Like that's I feel like that's the fun part of like getting to a point where you're like comfortable on your instrument, you know, a few people, you've played enough to kind of get into a scene, and now it's like, all right, I'm going to build this thing, invite people to hang out in, and then like, oh, I'm going to put together this thing and have people hang out. Like, it's just fun getting to connect pieces and puzzles, and yeah, like you were saying, all the artists and stuff for all your projects.
Yeah. You get to, I feel like doing this as a career, you get to use your whole brain, you know. And that's like, I think that's invaluable, getting to use the creative side and our mathematical side and our business side, you know, right and left, just in conjunction all the time, you know. It'd be nice to have insurance benefits, but I'm not complaining about, you know, that's a fair trade for the lifestyle, you know, and getting to have that control, running my schedule instead of my schedule running me. You know, it's a beautiful, beautiful thing.
Right. Yeah, I definitely see, you know, I see people who they're in that, you know, the building phase, whether it's like they got a new house or they got a family started, and like, you know, it's like, that's cool. That's, you know, intrinsic to a lot of human experience, having that kind of community or sense of extending your bloodline or family or whatever.
100%.
But there's also that feeling of like, you know, wanting to tell people like, hey, you know, like maybe like if you feel like overwhelmed, like call, like is grandma live nearby? Maybe have her watch the kids a couple Sundays a month, and then, you know, take a day off, or, you know, like take the kids to the beach, and then you can, you know, like, okay, well, you sleep, I'll play with the kids, and I'll sleep, you play.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
just making those conscious decisions of like, it doesn't always have to be like, oh, my, you know, my young developing child just says I want now, and all they want is everything, and I have to, you know, follow the whim of someone just being like, I want that and that.
Yeah.
It's like, it's like you still have control over your schedule, even if, you know, sometimes it feels like your kid can control your schedule,
For
which
sure, for sure.
is,
And I think that
you
that
know,
time will come. I look forward to when it does, but you know, I'm
right.
enjoying being a single young man right now. But then I see people like D, you know,
Hmm.
who's able to maintain a musician lifestyle, and he brings Jasper to his gigs, as many as he
Yeah.
can, you know, and I'm like, that's the way to do it. Like, you know, it's really cool to see it, you know. I mean, I think it's just like kind of like one of those myth things that it, you know, when you have kids, it's over, especially for
Right.
musicians and stuff. And it, you know, just to see that that's not the case is really inspiring, you know, for sure. But yeah, we'll deal with it when it comes time, you know, if we do, you know, if we're fortunate or whatever enough to have little ones running around that look like us. You know? But yeah, for
Right.
now, just kind of, you know, I love being able to just slowly go through life, and especially now having that slowness actually be an important factor, you know, just go along and figure it out, an adventure, enjoy the ride, you know. It's such a
Right.
crazy ride to get tuned into, you know, but it's awesome.
Yeah, we were, you know, because we were on the boat yesterday chatting just about, you know, everything getting back in the swing of it, or like, you know, just work. And, you know, as much as we, you know, we had those conversations of like, yeah, that game was a little weird, like, oh, the venue, or like, oh, you know, I've been in the car all weekend. But then we all kind of had that moment. It was actually listening to Nigel Hall's new album he just put out with
Yeah.
Butcher Brown, which just the probably one of my favorites this year. It's so
Nice.
good.
Nice. I listened to a
It's got,
tracks. I'll go and listen to all of it.
yeah, like he totally buried the lead of having guests too. Like all the singles he put out were like, oh, it's this cool. It's Nigel Hall and Butcher Brown, which I would have been happy with. But then, you know, like Patrice Rushen, she does like a sick keyboard solo. Like she, you know, she made the song Forget Me Nots that kind of, I think it got sampled into the Men in Black theme song. The
Cool.
boom dick doom doom ba doo 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 dude. Just all
Yeah,
the
yeah. That's cool.
Forget Me Nots. And then like Marcus King and who else? Jeff Coffin doing some flutes. Just
What?
like all
Oh,
these cool people on the record.
yeah.
Um,
Oh, that sounds great. That sounds great.
it's so, and it's so playful with like, there's so many throwback vibes of like there's a song called oh, my video went weird for a sec. There is a song called Caribou, and it sounds like a 70s, what is it, like a 70s, like almost like a game show backing theme. Like it just, it's like like a bubbly Latin jazz with like goofy, like this weird synth that sounds like, it sounds like either a trumpet went through a synthesizer or the synthesizer was trying to be a trumpet. And
Okay, yeah,
it's just
yeah,
like, it's just kind of like goofy and floaty. And but we were listening to that album on the boat, and you know, after all the music talk we were having, we just kind of were all like, yeah, music is kind of a really cool, crazy experience. And it's one of those that like not a lot of people have, like as many musicians as we know that are in it. Like there's so many more people who they won't, you know, there won't be those extreme highs of like getting to, you know, see your art elevated to a certain position where it allows you to do cool stuff and work with new people. And
hmm
you know, they won't experience those super lows of like your, you know, car breaking down miles from the nearest town trying to scrap together some change and make a phone call to like, you know, make something happen.
yeah, dude. It's the adventure though. Even those down times too. That happened to me last year, middle of nowhere, Iowa. My transmission blew out,
Oof.
and thank God for the connections that you make as a musician though. I was fortunate to be able to call somebody up and be like, hey, I need $4,000 for a car. Okay, where do I wire it to? Pay me back in a year. I'm like, sick.
Wow.
And would not have had that connection without doing music. Like that. It's amazing how the world can take care of you and how the universe can take care of you, if you just go out and do your thing with good intentions. Like somebody told me recently, I was watching another guitar player who's become a really good friend now. His name's Ty Drury. He's from up north in Traverse City. Plays with the Morrison.
Oh,
yep.
Yeah. Yep.
I was watching him play and I was talking to him afterwards and I was like, dude, you just have like this mad confidence and comfortability when you're playing. He's like, this is what I was born to do.
What do you mean? Yeah.
it made me take a step back and be like, wow, have I been like, having imposter syndrome for a while and just being like, do I deserve to do this? Like, and those words will always resonate with me, and just being like, yeah, this is what we're supposed to be doing. This is our role. However it looks, we might have an idea of how it looks when we're getting started in the game and then just get totally annihilated by that theory.
Right. Yeah.
And then find a way to accept our situation and grow it from there, that's the adventure and the journey. I think, I've been really enjoying that part of it, all those lows are just temporary. The highs are temporary too, but learning to enjoy all of it and just knowing that at the end of the day, it's going to balance out and everything's going to be fine,
Yeah, that's actually a great message to end on.
Yeah.
That very, very succinct way to end. I've been noticing a lot more moments of gratitude and especially now, I'm getting healthier and I think so far I've lost a little over 30 pounds and my diet's just been changing and I'm moving more and it's great as a, counterbalance to last year being like, oh, I don't have to move anywhere. And then, and having the energy to really sink into like, all right, I know I'm going to have to, these 12 hours are going to be me in a car, me unloading and loading gear, me in the sun, me up and down hills, up and down, stairs, so part of getting back into gig mode fully, which I'm considering 2022 is gig mode on full blast, as many, as much creative stuff as I can do in a year. It's nice to have these little check-in moments along the journey back into doing more of the things that I like doing and seeing more people do the things they like doing.
Yeah, and supporting, and finding time to just be there for each other, So yeah, man. Well, cool. This was great.
Yeah, where can people
sit down and talk?
It's super nice. And yeah, looking forward to all the new stuff. Where should people find all the things?
My Instagram honestly is the best place. I have a Facebook page and I only made it so I could make Facebook events,
Right.
Instagram is really where I post pretty much everything and where I can keep people in the loop the best. At Elijah Russ, it's just my first and last name. And my personal Facebook too, but they're usually about the same. If I post something on one, I'll go to Instagram first and then go right to Facebook. And I have a website too, ElijahRuss.com. I should probably update that. It's about time to rework that. So thanks
Yep.
for the reminder
Same.
on that. But yeah, I'd start, if people were listening or whatever, start kind of looking for things around like late September, October. I'm going to start really posting about the album release show, and I'll probably drop a single from one from the Lo-Fi album and one from Sandcastles at some point late summer, early fall. So
Awesome.
keep your eyes peeled, folks. Yeah,
Tune in.
We use eyes for social media.
Yeah. Well, awesome. Yeah, it was great chatting, and yeah, I'm sure we'll catch up in person sometime soon now that you're back in town.
For sure. I'm sure we have a gig or something together sometime before the end of the year. So, but yeah, we should get coffee sometime. Go eat some good food.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. All right, man.
Awesome.
Well, thank you so much for having me on here. It's such an honor. You're such a G. Everybody looks up to you. We all do. We're all like rooting for Gunnar always. So you're working as hard as you do. I think it really does keep all of us in check.
Thanks. I appreciate it.
Anytime, man. Anytime. All right, buddy. You have a good one.
Yeah, you too.
Bye.
See ya.